Day 5. Amazing. 5, halfway through there. 5. Learning to trust your inner guidance. And 5 is a big, if you know anything, what they say about the number 5 is it's about transformation, it's change. So, kind of halfway through, you can say it the same way that there should, I don't use the word should, there could be some significant shifts going on. So, you have started to get some ahas, learn a little bit about what you're experiencing, feeling that maybe you were led to go here, maybe you weren't, and you're recognizing, wow, the power that you have if you get to choose to accept a thought or turn it off or change the frequency. And then you're seeing the results. Imagine if you can just that one on time and say, you know what, there's always enough time. It's all going to get taken care of. So today, it's really about your story, okay? It's about your story about you and your life. And it's relevant because you have a story. So even though I've asked you to check like everything that you still have ideas and expressions about what your story is, and it's showing up on some of the way you share. So, for instance, when I said in day 3, so consider that you receive thoughts, right? There's still comments about, yeah, that's it, I get that. My mind is thinking this, and, I'll just have to think better thoughts. And I'm paraphrasing, that wasn't necessarily what was said, but that's the idea, is you have this idea already from before, your story of what's really going on in your life. So although you might have checked things, you still have this thing that comes up that says, well, I believe, for instance, your story could be like, I used to believe that life was like an onion, that I had to continually peel layers, and I was always going to be working through things, and it was an ongoing journey, and, you're never going to be done the journey. And now I think, wow, that is such a sales pitch. Yeah, it's a sales pitch. The amount of money that we spend on personal development, spiritual development in order to get present to what we already have is outstanding. It's mesmerizing when you really get present to it. So, you have a story. And your story supports you, it has payoffs for it, it has rewards for you because you can justify it. So if you want a life of joy and health and wealth and love and freedom and to have that choice to decide at any given moment in time and realize that your money is always going to be taken care of and you can create and be inspired and go where you want to go and trust and believe that you're connected to this force of what you want your life to be like, and that's really what you want, but your story still is about suffering and, oh, I still got to deal with these things, then that's what I'm saying is stop for a minute and ask yourself, how is that story, that frequency, that channel helping you if you really want to feel that sense of freedom? Now, when I was in that story of peeling the onion layers, I certainly didn't believe. I didn't believe that you could just be completely free because I really believed I had to keep peeling the onion layers. And then it came to me, right? I had felt like, for instance, it was health for me. And after doing alternative and complementary, I received this thought this is ridiculous that I have to spend money on alternative care and complementary care and being responsible for my kids and I. Because in Canada, we have socialized medicine, and I believe that's everybody's birthright. I believe we need to take care of each other. But those of us that were being extra responsible and not wanting to use the pharmaceutical system and the medical system the same way, we were paying out of pocket. And so that day I received the thought, just that, this doesn't quite make sense. Health should be a natural thing, right? At that point, it was a should be. It should be. So we just stopped and I started to use my own feelings of what came to me about the kids and going, yeah, well, I know that's a homeopathy, that's a chamomile thing, or you know what, we're going to use the cold socks treatments here, or we're just going to need fresh air, or we're going to throw some vitamin C, whatever. And then I came into energy. And that was the gem. Coming across the teachings of Bruno Gruning that said, you don't have to believe a word I say, but you have a duty to convince yourself. And that was it. It was like this concept that I could open up and get tuned in and tuned up. And the more I opened up to this concept of aligning myself authentically with this vibration, wow, things just radically shifted. And that's why I'm sharing with you, because I am totally, completely convinced for myself, and I've seen it in others, that when you completely believe that you can have a world that really does make you light up just like you were like a child, whatever age you are, right? I just turned 55 and I'm more excited about life than I've ever been in my entire life, because I have the eyes of a child and the excitement, but I have this new sense of wisdom to say, the world doesn't make sense. As a child, you have that awe, but then you're certainly starting to believe everything everybody's telling you because you're like absorbing it all. So you need to decide what your story is, and then ask yourself, does this story serve you? Does your story say, like, I got to work hard for 5 years before I can go out on my own? Because I had that thought somehow when I was in the later part of high school, and that's exactly what turned out happening for me. It wasn't that I just had that thought. I thought, and I would say that a few times, that, yeah, I'm just going to work hard for 5 years. I'm going to go out and open my own business. And at that point, I thought I was going to be like a tax accountant. And looking back with, no, I didn't. I went into sales and marketing and, had very, very successful, but it was 1 week shy of 5 years to the date when I resigned and jumped on the plane and took off to Nairobi. So there's a whole stream of thought that says what you think about, you bring about. But which comes first, the chicken or the egg? So do you actually get the thought? Do you think the thought, or do you receive the thought, right? It's like, do you go, aha, I got the idea? Or do you think the thought? Because I certainly didn't think the thought when I was younger that's, I don't even, maybe I used to think that maybe it was a show I saw on TV about Africa that made me want to go there. But I feel like that I must have just had a knowing that was part of my life plan. That was the program that I'd set myself up for. Just like we have programs here, we have a program to set your appointments. If you're in business here online, you have a program for word processing, you have a program for spreadsheets. I believe that's sort of what your life is like, is you have a program. You have a program and a unique expression that you're going to be that particular program, and everybody's special and unique in their own ways. But that's the force of it. You've got leeway, you've got flexibility, you've got creative power within that, but ultimately you are set on a certain program, a certain destination, a certain blueprint is all there. And that was decided when you came to have this experience. It's like, you know what the play is. You read the script and you're like, yeah, I want to play that part. I was like, sure, I want to play Jacqueline. I want to do Jacqueline. I want to go through all the suffering issues. I want to really make sure I've been there, done that, and really experienced so much suffering and marriages and, you name it. And then I want to do things alternative and differently and have everybody go, are you sure? And question me and doubt me and think that I've gone off the deep end with every decision I ever made over the past 25 years. But over time, those decisions I made all turned out to be like great decisions, and people respect them, and people look at them and go, wow, I get it now. But they get me now for where I was 25 years ago. And I go, now I'm in a whole entirely different world. So I'm okay with signing up for Jacqueline. You just need to be okay with your story, what your story is, and be okay with it. So if you're totally okay with your life now and it's working for you, then perfect. But if you really want something different, then the question right now for yourself, what you're noticing is, why would you still want to do the same things? Why would you want to keep receiving those same thoughts that say, this is how your life has to be? So when you open up and you ask your inner guidance, when your insurance says, yeah, you know what? You can do that project, or don't do that project, or take on this client, or don't take this client, or spend the day with a loved one. Like, I loved what Brenda said. She went off with her husband. And that's the idea, is when you feel you can actually have permission to enjoy your life and to love your life, your body's freer, because you're really being grateful for everything. So know your story. That's what it's about on day 5. You've got the weekend, if you need to really spend some time on this, to realize every time you have this feeling to do something, it's like, what is the story you're listening to? Because is that broadcast? That's what it's like. It's like a broadcast. Think of it this way. Something happens in the news, and CNN broadcasts it all around the world. And Reuters picks it up, and the other, media stations pick it up or whatever, and it's broadcast all over the world. Now, if you're like me and hasn't really paid attention to any news in 25, 30 years, then an event can happen and it just right over my head. Because if it's really something that really pertains to me and it's relevant to me, I'll hear about it. So that broadcast is going out there. Lots of people are going to hear it, and some aren't. And that's the same idea when it comes to this broadcast that's going out about your life and your story. It's being broadcast out there, and you got to decide if you want to tap in and tune into it. Because if this broadcast says, you know what, you still got to work on your stuff, you still have mindset, you still have limiting beliefs, and you still have inner childhood work to do, and you still got to do this, then you are listening to it. You are listening to it. But if you choose to turn it off and say, that might be someone else's broadcast, but I have this feeling inside me that I can have a great life that I really want, that I can have freedom, and I give myself permission to have time for myself, to have a bath with Epsom salts, like Joanne was saying, that you really do have the ability to love this experience, to enjoy your life. So we'll be back again on Monday with day 6. So you have this weekend to get caught up if you're, only on day 3. And again, I encourage you to comment on others so you can see what they're experiencing, because there'll be some ahas for that. Ideally, 1 would be great, but if you can connect with 3, that's the more you're going to see some of their stories. You'll go, oh, I see that. They got that. That's a gem. They explain it, because everybody explains it a little differently of how it's occurring for them. And I can share with you my experience and what has happened to me in the past, but right now you've got people in the Facebook group that are sharing what they're experiencing right now, and you've got some multiple gems, because everybody's sort of at a different place. It's beautiful. So I love you all. Have a fabulous weekend, and know that your story is just a broadcast that you can turn off and say, I'm done with it, and open up to receive. Really. And sometimes you might hear at the broadcast in the background, and you might be tempted. Like, there are times I'll turn on the news and go, did that really happen? Like, did that really happen? And, but there's a new level of separation from it because it's a completely separate from what I'm feeling. Whereas way back when, over here once upon a time, I was totally immersed in whatever the broadcast was. Okay? So that's a lot. But I gave you a lot because you have the weekend to digest it. So again, I love you. Have a great weekend. I'll see you Monday.